All right, so the first question that comes up is, where is Micronesia? For those of you who are not familiar, it's out in the middle of the South Pacific, sort of closer to Papua New Guinea, a series of island chains, and very beautiful. It's part of the US territories. There's a complicated relationship there, but I go through that last year at the annual conference. So you can check out a video on this link if you wanted to see my explanation and details about the island chain and why I decided to go there. I've also got a trip video of how I got there. It wasn't a straight shot like I planned. There was some mechanical failures of an airplane and some rerouting, but if you want to check that out, I've got a link there as well. So this will be a follow-up of the trip and what I did to help a sustainable business called Green Banana Paper implement some process improvement or lean methods in their operations. They take the banana tree fibers and they rip them apart and turn it into a paper product. It kind of comes out like a thick paper, almost like a leather, they call it. And they turn that into wallets or rolling papers or business cards or some kind of corporate gifts, like at a conference, like name tags and badges. It's very eco-friendly. They try to be as vegan as possible. I think they're vegan certified, and they're continue looking for more environmentally friendly dyes to use in their operations. And most of the product that they make is compostable. So if they have a scrap or rework, they just throw it into their compost bin. So that's also good. But one of the owners of the company wanted to set this up so that he could provide good paying jobs for the local workers and a source of income for the banana farmers. Most of the trees would just sit and rot on the land, or they would even burn the trees so that they could make room for more trees. A tree gets like one big harvest, and then it's pretty much useless. So really cool way of incorporating what's available on the island and utilizing it for a way to develop the country. And this is a specific island in Federated States of Micronesia called Kosrae. So we're under the UN goal of responsible consumption and production, number 12. So this is some of the products they make. So that's I'd really encourage you to check it out. And if you have a need for a wallet or think of a good eco-friendly gift, this is a great place to go. So I want to talk to you about what I'd worked on while I was there. These are the areas I'll discuss: understanding the customer, going to the Gemba, what's their production system look like, just some organization that we did, data collection and analysis, and then some training. So first off, the owner is Matt Simpson. He's originally from the United States. He went over to do some teaching through the World Teach organization in Marshall Islands, which is nearby. He loves to surf, and he found Kosrae and said, this is a great little island that could use some help. And he's just very entrepreneurial, and so he found this opportunity and just started building this little factory out of nothing. So it's really impressive what he's done. So when I talked to him, when I showed interest in coming over and helping him out, these are the things he told me about: efficiency, organization, communication, increasing production, speed of orders, reducing losses. So all those things, you know, little check marks in my head were like, yes, I can help. Yes, I can help with that. Yes, I can help with that. And so you can even see that we're barefoot. And so that for the first time I've worked barefoot in an operation. You take your shoes off when you come in. And it's very sweaty, as you can see. It's pretty warm there in the tropics. So, but I loved it. It was really great. So the first thing was to go and really understand the operations. And so I'd seen some videos going into it. So I knew a little bit of what they were doing, but I spent a lot of time just trying to understand the work and watch and observe and get to know people who work there. So there is no language barrier. They do have a native language, but they also are all taught English because their school system is funded by the U.S. So it was not a barrier to talk to them directly. Because of the problems we had at the flight, I got rerouted through Guam, and I was there for 3 days. Well, there happened to be an island fair going on where these products were being sold, and so I spent time at the booth. And so that was my first exposure to the customer side of it, to see what is the reaction from customers for these products. And it was very positive, and people were very excited about it. So that was on the left there. And then on the right was just kind of observing the different operations. And so they try to use the product that they make as much as possible. So these little folders on the top are made from the banana fibers. And then on the bottom left is a booklet of items that will be sewn together. And so it goes through a sewing operation. And so it's all clipped together, ready to go. So all the pieces are cut out through a laser etcher. And then on the far right there, someone is using the paper cutter on some of the graphic design work. So they actually have quite a bit of technology for their operation. They have computers, they have laser etchers, they have screen printers. So it's a little bit more modern than I was actually expecting. And so it's just great to kind of meet everybody and find out what they're working on and what are some of the challenges they're dealing with. So the first thing that I was trying to do is figure out, how does their production system actually operate today, and what could we do to enhance that or refine that? So I think first is just trying to lay it out and understand it. And so I kind of sketched it out here on the right with the system of folders going to a planning worksheet that goes into bins. And then the bins are used to determine the next work orders that were being issued. And then there's a series of steps of handoffs with some electronic and some hand written down on a clipboard. And just trying to formalize some of the steps that were already there. And so some things I worked on were, what is the inspection criteria for each type of item? It was all in everyone's head. And so we tried to get it on a piece of paper, like on a checklist, so that it was more formalized. And then just tracking what is going on at some of the operations. So he identified the sewing room as a bottleneck. And so we spent a lot of time observing and coming up with a way of measuring the performance or output of that operation specifically. So a series of some electronic systems that he could access anytime, because he wanted to be able to have flexibility to move off island or travel to build up more marketing for his products, but also be able to see what's going on at the production if he's not physically there. So we talked about standard work, we developed some metrics and even some Kanbans for how to better manage the inventory levels. Here's an example of 5S in one of the areas we worked on. On the left is before, so there's a lot of totes and storage there. Basically went through all that inventory and really figured out what's there and tried to figure out what to do with it. Some of it was outdated or defective. And then on the right, just opened up a new space, including putting a new window in. And then each of the areas were set up as little workstations. And so the storage behind it went with the workstation. And so on the right is multiple workflows versus on the left before, there was one station and everything was done at that station. And so there's a lot of transportation and back and forth and very little workspace to do. So just made the space nicer, and you had airflow coming in. So just comfort of the workers was a big bonus in this new layout. Some other organization is just looking to see, well, how many stickers do we have? The stickers go with each delivery and order. They use the lighters to burn off the edges of the stitching. And then they also use envelopes in their process, but these were all spread out in different bins. And so just trying to consolidate things and label them correctly. And you can see little red cards there. So right here, you can see the little green cards there. There's little, we set up little reorder points. And so on the little card, I just made a little note card that had, when you get to this card, then this is how many we want to order and where it comes from, who the supplier is, stuff like that. One of the things he was working on is trying to improve attendance. try to get people to show up for work. And so it starts with the time card. So we had electronic time card system, but it was manual. There was no connectivity to a database. They do have Wi-Fi, but it can be spotty at times. But the time card system was not hooked to anything. So basically, I went through, and every day, or actually twice a day, I would take the time cards out and manually type in the time into a spreadsheet, and then that helped generate an attendance sheet so we could at least status what's actually going on versus intuition or gut feel about how the attendance was. And then starting to track that, nothing fancy, no control charts or anything like that, but just tracking that data versus a goal and seeing the differences day to day or week to week with the attendance. And then also identifying people who are going above and beyond the hours that they were signed up for, and some of them that are struggling and falling behind. Transportation is a big challenge there of getting to work. It's not a very big island, but there can be barriers to getting around and getting reliable transportation. The other one was getting some metrics around productivity. So we first had to figure out a way to measure productivity by establishing some standard times for different assemblies and different products, and then starting to measure that and build reports on that. So you can see this is the weekly results. The blue dots represent the performance on certain weeks. And then you can see that there's variability in different weeks. And so at least starting to look at it, say, is this a typical week? Like for week 17 to week 18, you would say that's just normal variation. But when you see weeks 19 or weeks 21, you would see that there's something unusual. And then the gray dots would represent individuals who had a very high or very low productivity numbers. And so starting to separate those out and say, hey, this person's very consistently better than everyone else. What are they doing right? Or maybe they're missing something and having more quality problems. So just trying to tie some metrics back to decisions and where to focus. And then providing some training for the team is kind of the next step. So we went through and did 2 hours of training over 2 different days. And so basically just went through and did some lean one-on-one training. And so basically the way I worked out was we did a lot of just work one-on-one with different groups. And then towards the end, I kind of got everyone together. And when I went to the training, I had some actual examples I could share with them and talk about specific operations that might resonate with them. If I had started maybe with the lean training at the beginning, I probably would have struggled with trying to tie it back to them directly. So I think the fact that they started to know me pretty well, that helped a lot. Plus, I had real examples I could share from their operations. And I could point out, hey, this is where batching occurs, and here's how we might do one-piece flow. So what they're working on right now in this picture is the one-piece flow versus batching note card simulation. And so there's 2 different teams going, and they were comparing to see who could do their note cards the fastest. And so we did 2 hours for one day, and then we split it up and did another 2 hours, I think a week later. And so my total time there on the island was planned to be 6 weeks. Because of some problems, it only ended up being 5 weeks. But it was still enough time where I could get in there and really get to know what's going on and understand the operation. And then also be able to go in and implement some of these ideas and help them versus if I was there for like a week or 2, maybe, I probably would have only been able to provide some recommendations and then wouldn't be involved with the adjustments and trying things out. There's a lot of things that I worked on that never turned into anything that got implemented. I worked on some things like a planning sheet to try to forecast out when the orders would actually get through the process. And I didn't quite finish that. And so there's things that we started but didn't quite get all the way through. So I think it was a really good amount of time. I mean, I could have used a few more weeks, but definitely it was enough time to actually go in and implement some of these ideas too. So that was a good balance there. Does anyone? So I'll leave it up for questions. So we got a little bit of time, or we can open up for all questions, I guess, at this point.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll just add real quick is just they got hit really bad with COVID. Let me just go to this slide too, real quick. Um, they locked down pretty much the whole island, so you cannot leave if you want. If you don't want to come back, you can leave. But if you do, then they're not letting people in, basically. So at the time, there was 3 flights that would come in over the week from United. There's only one airline that serves them. And so 3 times a week, the airline would come in, they'd open up the airport, unload passengers and supplies, and then close down the airport. I think they're now doing that less, maybe only 2 or 4 times a month. And so they're really reliant on these shipments, and they've locked it down. And so nobody's coming in or going out of the island right now. So their orders have really shrunk, and the tourism has gone away, and they would usually get tours that come through and visit their shop facility. So they've really relied on government subsidies to support them. So if you are in the market for some eco-friendly products, check out their website and consider supporting them.
In listening to your presentation, it's like, first of all, I think we'd all love to get a consulting gig for six weeks in Micronesia. So well, I can't complain. Like I said, I had a consulting gig for 9 months in the British Virgin Islands. So that was but that was a government project they were willing to pay a lot of money for. So I'm wondering, how did you, sort of find them, and how did you make that work for yourself for being in Micronesia for 5 or 6 weeks?
Yep.
And a sort of a follow-up question to that is, after the fact, you mentioned that they do have Wi-Fi and stuff. Have you been able to do sort of remote consulting with them?
Yeah. So the way it worked out is I first learned about Micronesia, and I got really interested in wanting to visit there. And then I found this business, and they had a call for volunteers. And so yeah, so it wasn't a consulting gig per se. So I basically took time off because I had the flexibility of as my consulting job to go there, and it gave me a good reason. And I had a connection already versus just going there on my own and having to kind of figure my way around. So part of it was like mainly some work, but also some travel. And he connected me with all the people on the island to show me around and do a lot of the tourist stuff as well. So yeah, it turned into he gave me some product for exchange for my help at the end. So but yeah, it was pretty relaxed too. So it was kind of like a half vacation, half work, volunteer work experience. So yeah, if anyone is interested in going over there and helping, it's a great way to mix that in. It might be hard to get a couple weeks off depending on your job situation, but they're always looking for help because not many people get out there. I think they get very few tourists that come through there because it's very difficult to get to. But I had really high expectations for that whole trip, and it actually met all those criteria. So the plan was to go back this year, but that's not going to happen. And so we're hoping maybe next year to go back and visit. They got hit pretty hard with COVID and their sales and stuff. Yeah, the option is to help remotely, and I've offered that up a few times, but we just haven't connected directly with. Like I think we touched base on that spreadsheet I was working on a couple times, but yeah, it could be done for sure. So that might be what the plan will be for this year, is to stay connected online. I'm also working with them on some maybe some fair trade certification, and they need to have a third-party person evaluate them, and nobody gets out that way. And so I'm working with the certifying groups to see how I could become certified, and then on my next trip go out and hit up maybe other businesses in that region that don't get a lot of auditors to come that way. So I think it's going to open up some other potential things in the future.
I worked with some guys in Fiji, and they were in the same area, and it was very difficult to, even internet was kind of difficult, just sending emails back and forth. And so simple things, videos or other large files, I really couldn't transfer them. It was something of a challenge to even work with them pre-COVID.
Oh
So I
yeah.
can't imagine how much fun it is now.
It's not reliable, that's for sure, and not very slow when it was working. So sometimes we'd lose it for a day. We'd have to go into town to his other shop and try to get connected there, and that may or may not work. Electricity would go out every once in a while. So yeah, those are barriers to employment and productivity that we just don't deal with in the more developed countries.
Yeah, Brian, I wanted to thank you because you are always in engagement in helping others in the IISE. For a long time, I know you, so you
Oh,
are
thank
really
you.
always great this kind of engagement and helping others. Thank you.
It's fun, especially when you get to visit cool places like this.
Yeah, maybe sometimes we can go with you.
Yeah.
The it's not even though it's a relatively advanced economy, um, you know, it's not all that dissimilar. I mean, in that the power would go out at least once or twice a week. There were water issues, and it was just, but to the people there, that was just the way of life. You just sort of assumed that the power was going to go out a couple of times a week, and you went with that. And so, and unfortunately, right now, they used to be served by American Airlines, and none of the major airlines serve the British Virgin Islands right now. You really have to go to the U.S. Virgin Islands and take a ferry, or you have to take one of the really small airlines, which I thought was very odd in that the one of the small airlines that serves them is Cape Air, and Cape Air is actually based in Massachusetts. It's the airline that goes to Cape Cod and the islands. But they came up with a very smart thing, which was they realized that the tourist season in the British Virgin Islands is the opposite of the tourist season in Cape Cod and the islands. So they basically shift about a third of their little planes from Cape Cod to the BVI and back and forth, depending upon the tourist season. So 2/3 of their flights during the summer months are up here in Massachusetts, and 2/3 of their flights during the winter months are from Puerto Rico to the BVI and a couple of other islands down there. So you can find some of those adventures without having to go all the way to southeast or to the Pacific. So.
Yeah, the island hopper flight is pretty popular, just because you hit multiple islands and then you basically land. They drop off supplies, pick up some passengers, and take off. It's almost like a bus, a literal like air bus. And you don't get off, unfortunately. I wish they would like have a layover of like an hour and let you get off and kind of check out the beach and stuff, or go into town or something. But anyway, so on that second video I posted, I've got my video from on my phone looking out the window, and I had great views of the different islands you're passing over. So people just sometimes will just take that flight just for the views. There's a question on the chat about the other applications for the banana paper. They are looking at, like I said, trying to get certified to provide the banana papers as rolling papers for cigarettes or cannabis. They're also, let's see, they switched over and started doing masks locally. They're, again, in preparation of having cases and issues, and then also sending those and selling those to some of their customers in Guam and other parts of the region that do have cases or are using masks. So I've done some switching in that respect. And then just in general, I think he's looking at other things for sustainability, like maybe growing his own food to be more sustainable and teaching people how to do that. So just looking for other ways to kind of expand his business. So he's just very creative and very entrepreneurial, and basically kind of built all this up himself and just learned through the internet and videos and stuff how to do it. So
it just seems like the banana paper. I mean, if you're burning down the trees, right? I mean, obviously you've got this biomass that you've got to do something with, and it sounds like kind of like analogous to hemp, right? Where you've got these nice long fibers, you can
Yep.
do all sorts of amazing things with them. I don't know what the properties are of banana leaves or the trees themselves. I don't know if they have any good strength or can be woven or something. It just seems like there ought to be more applications for them.
Yeah. I'm sure he's looked into a lot of different ideas on that because yeah, there's plenty of those trees.
It looks like Angela Camilla asked, how can we become involved in helping to support the idea of the green banana paper?
Yeah, I think go to their website and buy stuff. That's what drives them. And so that's the best thing you can do. I'd say also just or promote it as well. So if you know, like if you're having a corporate outing someday that you're giving out gifts, look to see what they offer that are eco-friendly gifts. And so that's one option. And then I got business cards from them. So if you do still use business cards, they make really cool business card out of banana fibers, and they look nice. And again, it's a great conversation starter. So just check out their website and purchase some of their products. And then if you're really interested in going and helping, I think he would be interested in helping you figure out a way to get there and spend a couple weeks there and continue some of the work maybe that was started.